Creation's Journey to Life. Day 41. Spiritual Poverty of Love and Light. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that poverty exists because the humans with wealth have no life integrity and use only wealth integrity which justifies the existence of haves and have-nots, in spite of all resources being given free by earth and nature. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that with accepting the money system as it exists, money has become the power which decides who is wealthy and who is poor. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that with money being the root of all evil on earth, equalizing money as a life-based value system, evil will be converted and transformed to good. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that the poor cannot help themselves as the system requires capital to create opportunity. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that the wealthy deliberately hoard money out of fear of being poor and find ways to justify why poverty exists. In the ultimate, say that it is God's will when it is actually man's will. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that the wealthy use money to separate themselves from the poor through the homes and goods that are fenced to keep the poor out. In this, who are the caged ones on earth, the poor or the wealthy? I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that within making goods cheaper and more affordable, more people lose jobs and the jobless become the poor, as even their labor cannot produce capital. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that the wealthy use religion to enslave the poor with the hope that God will show mercy on the poor, while it is man that must become merciful and share what the planet produces for free. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that to be poor is to be without power, hopeless, and helpless, under constant stress that causes life expectancy to drop and is thus a form of torturous murder that is justified by those with money. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that those that hold the key to a world that will be best for life is the people with money. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that poverty is a result of the generational acceptances of the way the world works that has been passed on from parents to children, placing the integrity of all parents in the world in question. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that no person on earth can claim themselves to be good and loving if they have any money with which they can protect themselves from the reality of poverty. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that all organizations that pretend to help the poor are run and managed by the rich, only to protect their self-interest. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that the money spent on entertaining those with money can feed the world. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that the money spent on war protecting those with money can feed the world. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that if you have money and do nothing to bring a system of equality that is best for all life, you are the cause for all abuse on earth. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that no spiritual wisdom is actual wisdom as long as poverty, which can be changed, exists in the world. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that labor is worth nothing if there are no jobs. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that the only ownership that is real and equal for all is life, yet this is not recognized, as poverty proves. I commit myself to question the integrity of those with money that protect themselves against poverty till they realize they create poverty in the first place, and what they fear is their own demon. I commit myself to show how money determines choice and the right to life. I commit myself to show that having money in the world is evil, in fact. I commit myself to show that capital is just a way used to exclude the many for the benefit of the few, to make enormous profits and live in gluttony. I commit myself to show that religion is without integrity and is only a tool used by those with money to justify why they may have a good life while so many have no access to life support. Religion has made God evil. I commit myself to penetrate the fences behind which the wealthy hide their greed till they wake up and take responsibility for what is being created here on earth. I commit myself to show how dishonest those are that claimed they worked for their money and the poor must find a job when there are no jobs available, confirming that hard work is only the excuse of those without integrity. I commit myself to show that those great, good-hearted souls that seek to make things cheaper so that more can afford it are in fact attempting to capture the market out of greed, and in this way reduce jobs, creating more poor people. I commit myself to free the human from the slavery of religion. I commit myself to show that poverty is murder. I commit myself to call on those with money to open their hearts for life. I commit myself to call on parents to not teach their children the sins of the fathers, of which the acceptance of poverty is a sin. I commit myself to call on the loving and good to investigate all things and explain to themselves how they are able to accept the evil of poverty while claiming they are good. They are reducing love to evil. I commit myself to insist that all world organizations that are here to help the poor should be managed by poor people, as they understand the problem better. I commit myself to call on all entertainers to strike till poverty is solved. I commit myself to call on all soldiers to realize that war is murder, as no form of killing is ever justified. I commit myself to call on all spiritual people to investigate what spirit they allow inside them that allows poverty to exist in the world. I commit myself to show that only life is real ownership and worth anything. I commit myself to show that those that allow and accept poverty on earth are poor in spirit, which no amount of love and light can ever reclaim. I commit myself to show that love and light is the greatest evil ever visited upon the earth and life.